Sure, welcome back to Creative Curiosity. Today I wanted to talk about my tattoo journey. It's a conversation I've had with a bunch of different people over my career, but I realized I hadn't formally said it in a single conversation that people can watch or listen to. So that's what this is. So at the moment I'm 33 years old. It is Friday the 16th of May 2025, and I started tattooing in 2006. I'm pretty sure it was September. Not 100% sure on if it was September or not, but I know I had just turned 15, and my birthday is August 17th. So I had just turned 15 the month before. And my first tattoo was on my auntie, my dad's younger sister, and it was her 30th. I'm not too sure if it was her 30th that day, but she was 30. And that day, I remember my dad had tattooed another auntie and uncle, and then he was going to do his younger sister after them two, and she asked him if I could do it. Because I've been doing art my whole life, so she knew I was artistic and creative. And he said, yep, if he wants to. And then she asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said yes, nervously got into it. And the design was on her upper back. So if you imagine this was my back, it sort of covered this area here, but over here, over her shoulder blades and her traps. And then my dad had the design and we stenciled it, put it on. It was moko, but it was my dad's own version of moko, or his style anyway. And he sat next to me, and I had no idea how, of all of the technical aspects of tattooing. So I didn't know how deep the needle should go, how fast I should pull a line, how to hold the machine comfortably, all of those things that you don't really think about unless you're faced with having to tattoo somebody. So I sat there and I pulled my first line, and way too fast. And my dad was sitting right next to me, and he just said, "Oh, bit fast, just slow it down." So each line was like that for the majority of it. But I remember I was sweating bullets. I was super nervous, and eventually finished it. I can't remember how long it took. I don't really remember the experience other than the beginning of it. And the tattoo didn't turn out well, as you'd expect with no experience. But my auntie didn't mind, because she just wanted to have my first, because she saw how special that would be. And even now she understands how special that was. And I didn't think about it sort of too much, like sort of how impactful that experience could be for my trajectory moving forward. And at the time, I did that one, and then everyone thinks you're a tattooist. And back then too, 2006, it wasn't super common like it is now. There definitely weren't just 15-year-olds tattooing everyone. There were a few of the bros that I know now who started tattooing around the same time, but at the time I didn't know they were tattooing. And I didn't even know them actually back then. So everyone thinks you're a tattooist, and then they ask for a tattoo, and you're keen. I was keen, so I was like, yep, that's us. Tattooed all my bros, my literal brothers, and then my mates who are my bros, and they're all 14, 15. I think my younger brother might have even... I think he would have been 14. He would have been 14, because I had a little bit of experience, enough to do pretty straight lines anyway by the time we did his first one on his calves. So that was 2006, and it's been 18 and a bit years now, which is outrageous. It's crazy to think about. 18 and a half years. Around for the first 6, 7, maybe the first couple of years, I was just tattooing the bros, and it was mostly moko, because it was just line work, and I didn't know how to shade. And I remember in those days, my dad and I, and he only had been doing it a couple of years before me. And he never had any formal training on it, didn't do an apprenticeship or things like that. He just learned from his bros, my uncles. And we didn't even use Vaseline in the early days, so it was just dry, tattooing dry. Didn't know where the hell, couldn't even see our lines really, because if you've tattooed or you've been around tattooing before, you know how smudgy it can get. And without Vaseline, you're practically blind. And we didn't know how to float with our needles, which is when you have your needle hanging out from the tip of the tube. And you have it hanging out far enough that even when the needle is in the skin, you can still see some of the needle before it's being obstructed by the tube. So what we would do is we would just, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called, but you have just the needle hanging out just enough out of the tip so that you'll just touch the tip to the skin, which meant that the depth was always bang on for the majority of skin. Some areas are thinner, some areas are thicker, but for the majority of skin, especially the skin we were tattooing, we would get the right depth. But you can't see anything because the tip touching the skin and ink is there, it just makes a bloody black mess. And you're fighting that as well as my lack of skill. So it made it hard. But in those days, you didn't make any money. Everyone was just getting freebies, as they should have. If they're getting tattoos from me and I don't know what I'm up to, they should be getting free ones. And I remember the gear we used was just a blooming cheap tattoo kit that came with 2 machines, ink, all of the stuff that you need to get started. And my dad ordered one of those online. I think it was like $500. And the machines are super loud. They weren't good, but they did enough to get the idea of tattooing across. So he did a bunch of bad tattoos for a few years, and I eventually bought my first machine. My mate bought it, actually. My mate, one of my best mates, Rodney, he bought it for me. And then I just tattooed him. And I had already tattooed him a couple of times before that. And it was an Aaron Kane Acantha liner. And that was in 2010. So that was 4 years later, I finally got a proper tattoo machine. And it was really good. I still use it every now and then too. 18 years later. Oh, 18 years later. What's that? 15 years later. So yeah, and then by that point I was like, shit, I should have did this a long time ago. Because any money that I did make by the time I started making money just went to stupid stuff like buying clothes and burgers. As a young person who had this craft, I should have put their money into their craft, but I didn't know any better, so I know now. And then 2011, I moved up to Hamilton to study at Wintec, and I got a job at Custom Collective, which was a tattoo shop on Collingwood Street in Hamilton. It's called Flax Roots now, but at the time it was called Custom Collective. And the only reason I went there was because one of the bros I went to high school with, his uncle used to work there, and he said, bro, you should hit my uncle up, see if we can get a job at their tattoo shop. So I went there, and I had my laptop with me with my work on it, with my best work, and I went and met one of the owners. So it was co-owned, 2 fellas, Mark and Vinny, and Vinny was there that day and Mark wasn't there. And I just asked him if I could see the bro's uncle, Damien, and he wasn't there that day. I was like, I just wanted to show some of my work, something like this. My memory on it is vague, but I remember I showed Vinny my work on my laptop, and he was impressed by it. No, I'm pretty sure I think he was impressed by it. And then he asked me, are you looking for work? I was like, yeah, actually, yep. And he goes, come back. He gave me a day, maybe the next day, come back tomorrow, and when Mark's back in, and can have a talk. So I was like, yep, cool. And then I left, and that was super nerve-wracking because I'm naturally a pretty introverted fella, and I don't do stuff like that, sort of put myself out there to people. And the next day I went back, I met Mark, and he was doing a moko. And introduced myself, and I'm not too sure exactly how that conversation went, but they said, you can work here if you want. And at the time there were I think there were 3 people tattooing in the shop, and then I was the 4th person. And I was just there whenever I wasn't studying, and because I was studying full time, so I was there a few days a week. And then I went there, started tattooing, and my first job was moko. It was on a back and she pulled out halfway through the session because she was too sore to carry on, and she was moving heaps too when I was tattooing her, and so it was a pretty hard experience for a first job in a tattoo shop. And I hadn't even really stepped into tattoo shops before, let alone stepped in there to work. And most of the time when I worked, it was around people that I knew. Oh, all of the time, actually. I never worked around people that I didn't know. So yeah, being in a setting like that with a bunch of different artists was pretty nerve-wracking, but that's how my first experience went. And then after that, and that was a pretty big job too. Most of the jobs that I got for the first few months, if not for the rest of that 6 months, were just small jobs, like little swallow tattoos here and there, or dove tattoos, which were the minimum rate in the shop, which was $100. So I was just doing mostly $100 tattoos, and it was 50%, so I had to give half my money to the shop. And back then, being a student, we were blooming super broke, getting $50 at a time. It's not that much, and it was just lucky I stayed with my cousins at the time. Lived with my cousins, and but money aside, like that whole experience, I worked in there for 3 years. The whole time I was studying, 2011 to 13, I learned heaps, and I remember having like painting sessions with Vinny, just to hone my art. And at the time too, practically all of my brain capacity was on tattooing, wanting to get better. I wrote this goals list down, first one I've ever written. I didn't even know why I wrote it, in 2011, and one of them was to meet Nico Hurtado, I think, because at the time he was like one of the biggest tattoo artists in the world for his color realism tattoos. And another one was to tattoo portraits. I can't remember the other ones, but work in a tattoo shop. This was before I got the job at that shop. Work in a tattoo shop. So over those 3 years, I did all 3 of those things. Nico Hurtado happened to come to Hamilton Tattoo Convention 2012. Was it 2012? Might have been 2013. Anyway, he came to Hamilton, met him, which was buzzy. I did my first portrait on my mum of my nephew, and that was pretty buzzy. And obviously I got the tattoo job, got the job at the tattoo shop. And there was a period too where I was tattooing Japanese, and I just wanted to tattoo Japanese style tattoos. Heavily influenced by Jeff Gogwe, an American tattoo artist who still to this day is one of the best in my mind. Got to meet that fella too in 2012. Freaking blew my mind. It was like meeting bloody Bob Marley, Michael Jackson, someone like that. And I remember introducing myself to him, and I stuttered as I said my name. He asked me what my name was, and I said Henry, but I stutteringly came out, and it sounded like Henry, and he said, "Oh, Henry?" And I was like, "Yep." I just let him call me Henry. Took a photo with him, buzzed out, and I got my $1,000 course-related cost money to fly to Melbourne to the Rites of Passage Tattoo Convention, which he was headlining at. This was right and smack bang in the middle of broke student life, so yeah, that was pretty buzzy. So he influenced my art at the time. Actually, here's a funny little story. The reason all of my pages, my social media pages, are called Te Haunui Art was because of him. So his page on Instagram is Gogwe Art. And I just thought he was the coolest artist. I got Instagram because of him, because he only posted on Instagram at the time, 2012. So I wanted to be like him. Jeff Gogwe Art. I was like, oh yep, they hoed me out. I got this tattoo on my head. Yeah, it's a mandala. I got it from one of the bros at the tattoo shop. Got that because of Jeff Gogwe, because he had one on his head. I was like, man, I want to get one of these too. Yeah, so that fella had this huge influence on me. So that was 3 years in Hamilton, and then after that we moved to Palmy, and I got a job in Powerhouse Tattoos down there, which was on Main Street in the Square, which is smack bang in the middle of Palmy. And that was a totally different tattoo setup, whereas at Custom Collective / Flax Roots Tattoo, most of, if not all of the tattooing was our designs. They were all our designs. People would come in with ideas, and then they would say, oh yeah, cool, and they would design up something new and original for them, and then tattoo it on them. But at Powerhouse, a lot of times people would come in with they already had designs, and then we would just tattoo them. Sometimes you'd do original designs on people. So it was a mix of different approaches to tattooing. And I think that approach, like just having people come in with designs, I think that's amazing for people who are just starting out, who just need tattoo time under their belt so they can hone the technicalities of tattooing, pulling lines, doing shading, color packing on different areas of the body, because it's high volume too. It's like I rarely ever did just one tattoo in a day at Powerhouse. It was 2-3 tattoos a day, average, every day, 5 days a week, and sometimes on Saturdays. So yeah, it's a good place to learn the craft of tattooing. But as an artist like me, who I only like doing original stuff, I don't like doing other people's stuff, it was hard. It was tough, because every time I tattooed somebody else's design, like a little bit of me would be like, man, I'm not enjoying this, or I don't like this, like, because I know what it's like to be on the other end of that, where I have other people steal my designs that I've done and tattoo them on other people who don't know the person that their design was originally intended for. They don't know the story behind it, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, as an artist who loves making original art, that was hard. But yeah, so there were pros and cons to working in a shop like that, which eventually meant that I left. So I left after about 10 months. I started in January, finished in October, and then I started working from home. And I think at that point too, that was my realization that I wanted to work independently, and sort of set my own structure. So I had to, learn taxes and all of that stuff, do my own messaging, all of those sorts of things. All of the stuff that comes with making tattooing actually happen. I had to learn all of that. And at that time too, so that was 2014, October, I think I left the shop and then went and did my own thing. I set up a room at our house specifically for tattooing. And I think I really started knuckling down on doing atua stuff. My first taurape or puhoro was 2015. I was on the Bro Oots. And that was an experience too, as you could imagine. That was in 2015. I think it was summertime 2015. So there were all of these big jobs and big shifts that were huge learning curves, learning how to work for days on end on the same person, morning to night, and trying to make a huge cohesive design over that much of half the body. Yeah, what a lesson, man. What a lesson. 2016, I think it was. I did my first stipple shading tattoo. And I remember it was just a hypothesis. I didn't even know exactly how to do it because I had already started following Mr. Troshin. I think Alex Sauter as well. This other fella, Nicky32 GTR, I think was his name, on Instagram. And they all did 3-round liner stipple shading tattoos. And I loved their work for like a couple of years at that point. But I didn't know how they did it. All I knew was that they used a 3-round liner. And I was like, man, do they just turn their machine down? And I was using a Cheyenne Hawk pen at the time. I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. And I had the power unit as well, the Cheyenne power unit. And I'm not too sure how the voltage works on there, but it's just got numbers. And the lowest the number went was 60. I'm guessing that's 60 RPM, revolutions per minute. Nah, it can't be. That's too slow. Per second, maybe. I don't know. Whatever it is. Turned it down to the lowest setting. And then I just started tattooing. And then it worked. It worked exactly how I imagined it could work. And it felt like a huge light bulb moment. I was like, holy shit, this is actually working. I'm doing that tattoo technique. And the tattoos turned out good. It was a tattoo of my interpretation of Maru and Atua Māori, a Māori god. Turned out cool. And I did a few tattoos that year in that technique. And still to this day, man, there's something about them that I haven't been able to replicate. There was this certain look. Yeah, so that was another huge learning curve. And then, end of 2016, we moved back to Whakatane, to Poroporo to be exact. Kept tattooing, doing portrait stuff, atua stuff, moko. Moko was always there. And 2017, I think it was, toward 2017, end of 2017, I started to feel a bit tired of tattooing. And it had gotten to a point where it just felt like work. It had zero fulfillment in it, or pretty much zero fulfillment. And I had gotten to a point where I thought I was being, inauthentic. That's probably the closest word I can think of. And I thought the best solution to that was to quit, to retire from tattooing, because I felt I owed it to my clients that I at least enjoy some of the process so they can get my best work. And I thought, if I'm not enjoying this, I'm probably not doing my best work. So I should hang up my needles and hang up my machines. So I publicly posted about it, and it set a date which was around August or September 2018. That was going to be the end of it. And I ended up sort of being flat out booked for the rest of that year, all of 2018, up to when I thought I was going to quit. And then I ended up stopping for a bit, and I just slowed down. Like, I still tattooed on the side. Like, I did on average maybe one a week. Sometimes I'd do like a couple a week, and then I'd do none for 2 or 3 weeks. And because by this point too, I had gone to Tony Robbins, and one of the sayings I took away from that was burn the boats, which means give yourself no choice but to move on, or to succeed in the next thing that you're thinking about doing. And the next thing I was thinking about doing at that time was just stopping tattooing and just making art and stuff like that. But I think I misunderstood it, because what burning the boats, now my understanding of it means is you don't go back. And if you're going to burn the boats, you better, freaking bust your ass to make whatever the next thing is, make it work day and night. And I didn't do that. So I ended up slowing down tattooing. I changed my pricing as well. Actually, this was a pivotal moment. I think this is probably an important message. If you're a tattooist, if you do moko, I think this is probably one of the most important things I could say in this podcast today. So, listen up. At that time, what I ended up doing was I ended up clarifying my process, which meant I ended up having a minimum rate. I think at the time it was $1,500 minimum, regardless of the size. If you want a dot, $1,500. So I just fully cleared it up. I think my deposit amount was $200 maybe. Strictly $200. If you don't pay your deposit, you're not getting an address. So you're not coming. I don't care, what you got going on. No deposit, no booking. I said no to a bunch of tattoo stuff that I didn't want to do anymore. And by this point, I had pretty much stopped doing Japanese stuff. I had just moved away from it. And I had gotten to a point where I was pretty much strictly doing moko and some realism stuff. Portraits, some portraits of animals and things. Pretty much that. Like the Atua stuff, I would count those in portraits because they were just faces mostly. Sometimes some of the body. So there. That's all I tattooed. Anything out of that, I just said no to. And having a design fee, I think I had a design fee by that point. So if someone wanted a tattoo of something outside of moko's easy because you can just freehand it. You don't have to do any prep for designs and stuff beforehand. But with any of the realism stuff, I started charging, or like I strictly charged. If someone wanted stuff like that, I charged for it. I made strict times. It was like, this is always the start time. It was 10 a.m. at the time. And a session goes from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So 7-hour session. And regardless of wherever we finish in that time, 1,500 is the rate. That's what it is. If we start at 10 a.m. and we finish 11 a.m., 1,500. What else was there? I think those are the main ones. So what that did for me at the time is it clarified my path through tattooing and through moko. And I think I stopped tattooing weekends too at that point. Strictly no weekend tattooing. And so it shrunk the possibility of work from here down to here. It narrowed it, lasered my focus. Lasered my focus. My work got better. I tattooed less often. I enjoyed tattooing again, and I hadn't enjoyed tattooing for a long time before that. So yeah, that's probably my most important lesson that I learnt along my tattooing journey. I've refined it since, but yeah, if you can take anything away from today, take that away. So I was tattooing in Poroporo from end of 2016 to May of 2023. So that's 7 years. 6.5 years, because it was the end of 2016 we moved home. And then moved over to Tauranga 2 years ago, and it's May now, so almost exactly 2 years ago. Moved here. I've continued to refine my tattoo process. On top of those things I already just said, for pretty much all of my tattoo sessions, I don't allow support people. So I just, whoever my client is that day, you come alone, you come by yourself. And this is not to sort of look down upon anyone whose process is having support people there, and I understand how important having support people there can be for stuff like tattoos and moko sessions and all that. But for me, because I tattoo from home, I've experienced all of the experiences you can experience with support people and so on and so forth. And I do my best work, and I feel most comfortable in a space when it's just me and the person getting done. Especially at home, there's no part of my mind that's thinking, is their support person or are their support people alright? Are they comfortable? Do they need something? All of that. Where all of my focus can go just into the client. And another thing too is all of the client's focus can go into just sitting well, so they can get the best work. A lot of times, I've experienced when they have support people, it can distract them in a bad way. It can take their focus away from sitting well, and they end up moving. And sometimes support people can think they can mean well, but they can take the client's focus away and their energy away from where it needs to be, and end up making the session harder. So I simplified that by just saying no support people. The only times that I allow support people is when I do moko kanohi, mataora or moko kauai. And literally that's it. Not even for taurape, puhoro, I just tell them to come by themselves. And I say to people too, and in messages I say, I want you to have the experience that you want to have. And if that means having your whānau there, then amazing. But it just won't be with me. And I'm alright with that. I think people appreciate you being straight up with them, being honest with them, instead of sort of being vague about your process. I tell them to be, so 9 a.m. is when my sessions start, and I tell them to be here at 9 a.m, no earlier, no later. Because I've had people turn up a bloody hour early, and I'm still not even sitting up yet. I'm having breakfast or something. And because it's just a room in my house, I don't have a waiting room. I don't have a waiting room for them to just wait for me. So I tell people, and I tell them very clearly, like, don't come any earlier or later. Come at 9 o'clock. Park at the road or get dropped off. Come down. This is how you get to my house. Blah blah blah. So that part of my process has been a huge help. Easing my mind, because it's all laid out for people. I tell them sort of how to dress, to dress comfortably. Don't wear clothes that you don't want to get ink on. Don't wear clothes that's going to restrict me getting to the area that's going to get tattooed. Have breakfast, all of these things that are going to make the session easier and more enjoyable for both of us. What else is in there? Yeah, tell them how much it costs if we go over. I tattoo weekends now, but I charge more, because weekends are usually the time that that you can do stuff with your loved ones, with your family, with your partner. Because people usually throw things in the weekends, events and all of that. Not that I'm a go-to events person all the time anyway, but it's good to know that option's there. So I'm very clear about my process, and I make no apologies about it. And it's been a hard lesson to learn for me, being a pretty strong people pleaser most of my life. Even now, still a lot of me is like that. But it's putting it in writing and sending it out to everybody before they come. It's good clarity, I think. So now, anyway, that's still part of the tattoo process. At the moment, I still tattoo, still do moko, still do atua stuff. I just did a live stream a couple of weeks ago of my tattoo process and charged for it, which was cool. 3 people bought that those sessions, so they have access to those videos and that whole process of how I created that ranginui tattoo, as they deserve. You pay for stuff you deserve to get it. And where I'm at now, I've got ideas of making stuff on Patreon and really just trying to fuel my artistry and my curiosity and make stuff that I think is cool. And still enjoying tattooing. I think my ideal would be to get to a point where I only tattoo absolutely tattoo stuff that I want to tattoo, stuff that I'm curious about. And because my money is coming from elsewhere. Because right now, all of my money pretty much is from tattooing. But I'm lucky that I get to tattoo majority of stuff that I enjoy as well. Yeah, I think that's the majority of it. All my tattoo machines I'm using at the moment, I'm using 2 Dan Cuban Sidewinders, 46s. One is a lightweight version made out of aluminium. I think the other one's brass, so it's a bit heavier. They both run pretty much the same. They just feel a little bit different, sound a little bit different because of that weight difference. And I'm using a Bishop wand, the shader. It's a power wand, but I don't have the batteries. I've just got the RCA version. And I use that strictly for stipple shading, portrait stuff, atua stuff. Super soft, and I think there's probably a little middle ground there for a power wand packer, which is what Mr. Choshin uses. But he's been hinting that he's got his own version of a machine, a Bishop stippling machine, which he hasn't talked about, so I'll wait for that to come out whenever that is and see if that sounds like a better move for me. But yeah, hope you fellas enjoyed this episode, that there was some takeaway in it. If you're an artist yourself, let me know what you took away from it, or the most important lesson you took away from this episode, and let me know what else I should talk about, stuff that you're curious about, because I'm pretty much an open book. Cheers.